Everyone. We want to thank you all for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time to spend about an hour with us today to have a conversation. So we're doing this via Zoom as opposed to maybe a webinar. We thought we'd make it a little more warm for folks. So feel free to keep your cameras on or off. Obviously, we want to save bandwidth, but feel free to do that. Before we get started, I want to encourage everyone to pause for a second and recognize the land that we're on. I want to recognize that the land that we're on is not our own. Whether our ancestors came here willingly or whether they came here unwillingly, that we all came to a stolen land. I'm logging in today from Toronto, which is also the place where I live and where the Dahlonega School of Public Health operates. I want to acknowledge that for thousands of years before me, this land has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home of many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. I want to acknowledge and pause and recognize that I am lucky and I am blessed to be able to live, to work, and we all are blessed to learn on this land, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. Especially important today and this week, that we spend the time to really pause and acknowledge and remember and recognize what that really means. So I want to make sure that we stop and do that and encourage you all to do that and recognize where you're calling in from, and the blessing that we have to sort of be on this land and operate on this land. Introducing myself, my name is Ryan Hines. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, I'm the new director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at Dahlonega School of Public Health. And again, just want to thank you all for joining us today. This is one of a few events that we've had all week through social media. Also, we've hosted a few events. Tuesday night, we had a wonderful film review and discussion of the film Indian Horse. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to say it again. I said in the previous events, go see that movie. Look at it on Netflix, YouTube, wherever you can find it. Indian Horse, it's an amazing movie. We were lucky enough to have Edna Manitowabi, who is not just an Indigenous elder and an academic, but also an amazing actress who was in the movie. And we got just some wonderful insights from her, not just about the movie, but really just the context. She has a personal connection to residential schools herself, and so we had a really great discussion on Tuesday night. Yesterday we were lucky enough to be joined by the Shingwak Residential School Center out in Sault Ste. Marie, and they gave us a virtual tour of their current site, which has been transformed from a residential school to more of a center now of learning and teaching. And so today is the third sort of engagement that we've had, and where we're going to learn a bit more about some plans for some plantings at the McCaul sort of side of our 155 building. And we've got some wonderful guests today who are joining us. I'm going to start by introducing folks. You probably already know her. Most people on this call know her. Most people now on Yahoo know her. If you haven't gone, go to Yahoo, look her up, Angela Mashford-Pringle. We're lucky enough to have her as our Indigenous Health Lead, and so much more. So she adds just amazing value that I could not capture within a 30-second introduction. But if you don't know who she is, just type her name in. You'll get a ton of articles and a ton of things that she does. She's just wonderful. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Angela. Thanks so much for joining us. Over to you.
Language. Thank you, Ryan. And now that I'm blushing, Kwe kwe, ani, bozo, tanzi, aloha, bonjour. I just want to welcome everybody to this space today on a day that we should be reflecting, even though our premier didn't see a need to make it a reflection day. Hopefully, when we come to election time, everybody will be reflecting enough to make that decision on what we need to do next. So I'm from Temiskaming First Nation in Northern Quebec. I'm Algonquin, I'm Bear Clan. I was born and raised in Toronto. And so I have not resided on my own traditional territory. And right now I live in Mississauga, and that's where you're seeing me from. I have the great pleasure of working with Liat, Stefan, and Agatha, who you're going to meet in a moment. And we had these wonderful discussions about the gardens down the side of the Dalalana School of Public Health. And I really had this vision that we would be able to put more indigeneity around the outside of the building. I know that our dean was do whatever you think you need to do. And I have been pushing that button ever since. He probably will regret that at some point and telling me to go ahead and do what I want. And I've already talked to Robin about, hey, can we do something inside too? I don't want to destroy what's there. Can we just go over top of it? Would that be such a horrible thing to make us less colonial, less institutional looking? We could have a nice green space inside our front foyer. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So with that being said, after months of working together, and the wonderful students, Stefan and Agatha, made these wonderful plans. You're going to meet them right now, and they're going to tell you all about these plans. And we went back and forth about what it could look like and trying to figure out what could go up the side of McCaul instead of that grass and the daylilies that are there. So I hope you don't like grass and daylilies, because they're not going to be there anymore. And my hope is eventually we would be able to either get rid of those concrete boxes out front of our building or do something that's a little more friendly. If we are public health, if we are interested in doing social justice, then why aren't we doing more? And there's always room to do more. I'm also about making sure that, if you're not able to afford food, why can't we have food growing up around our building? What is the harm in that? The harm is, oh my God, homeless people might come sit out front of Dalalana, and yet we do research on them. So it's time for us to step up, change the way we work, change the way that we live, and let's try to actually do more for people. So now I'm going to leave it to Liat, Stefan, and Agatha to tell you all about the wonderful designs. On to you guys.
Thank you so much, Angela, for the wonderful introduction and for giving us the opportunity to speak to you all and share our work and an upcoming planting this Saturday. My name is Liat Margolis, and I am the director of the Master of Landscape Architecture program at the Daniels faculty here at U of T. I have the pleasure of being the co-founder and co-lead of Nikibi Dawidina Gigwag, which is an Indigenous youth access program here at U of T. And before we start, I have put together a few slides to share with you. And I just wanted to say that with respect to the introductions, I feel extremely honored to be able to do this presentation on a day like today, and to honor Phyllis Websted's story, and to reflect on the history of residential schools and the generations of impact that it has had on victims and families. And it's a huge honor for me to speak on behalf of a youth program, to think about celebrating them today. And unfortunately, we invited them to join us, but they're all either at university in courses and or still in high school in courses. But I hope that I can do justice and represent them properly. We have some messages from them to you. So thanks again for inviting us, and a huge thanks to Angela for supporting this project and being the instigator, really, and really promoting and advocating for more Indigenous landscapes and knowledge sharing, and the opportunities to bring elders and knowledge keepers to spaces to share this knowledge about plants, the vast relations that we have with Plant Nation and all of our relations. Huge thanks also to Robin Hurst for being, again, such an incredible supporter and advocate for this, to Ryan and other staff for organizing this day, and also to U of T Planning for being the kind of behind the scenes supporter of this project, and Stan Zweigel, who is the head of grounds. Can't thank him enough for having the foresight, the openness, the open-mindedness to actually change the landscapes at U of T and embark on a new paradigm, looking at different kinds of planting and different kind of relationship with plants at the University of Toronto. And I think that that's really a huge thanks to him for that. So who we are, Nikabitawajina Gigwag is Anishinaabemowin for Flooded Valley Healing. This is a name for a youth group that was named by the youth, looking at the connection with the land, and thinking about the healing of the land and the healing of themselves. And this is obviously a collaboration between our group, which is based out of the Daniels faculty and the Dalalana School of Public Health. And we're grateful for this collaboration, looking for more opportunities like this. And today we'll share with you with Agata Marzowski and Stefan Herda. Both are graduate students in the Master of Landscape Architecture program, and they are really, they've been the mentors for the youth for the last couple of years. Our program's been running, this was our 4th summer, and they are really the leads behind this design that you're going to be seeing today. So I'm going to invite them to share their thoughts and comments and experiences as well. But this is really the vision of the youth that I'll be sharing with you. Their hopes to see what Indigenous landscape look like at the University of Toronto, their vision of what landscapes should be that are about sharing the vast knowledges, botanical knowledges of Indigenous cultures, languages, and thinking of all of our relations, thinking about biodiversity, thinking about habitat, thinking about not only the human relation to plants, but also all the crawlers, the swimmers, the flyers, all of our relations that we need to think about. So our, just for background, how we arrived at this design is thinking about the connection to the land. Nikabitawajina Gigwag is an Indigenous youth access, employment, and mentorship program at the University of Toronto Daniels faculty, and responds to the University of Toronto Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action number 26, which focuses on pathways for post-secondary education, supporting Indigenous youth. And the program helps Indigenous youth build lifelong friendships, leadership skills, cultural identity by engaging in design projects that connect landscape architecture and ecological restoration with teachings shared by elders, knowledge keepers, academic scholars, and professionals. It honors the voices of the youth on the environment and community building. The program is led by Elder Wabagoon, who is the, currently or recently been appointed as the first People's Advisor to the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture, Landscape, and Design. Elder Wabagoon unfortunately couldn't be with us today because we're running our own Daniels events, but she sends her greetings. She's an Ojibwe elder from Lac Seul First Nation and has been the co-founder and co-lead of this program, along with myself. Stefan and Agatha are incredible program leads, student graduates program leads who've been working with the youth. And the youth are working with us, just so you know, for 7 weeks full time. They're employed by the faculty to do all these different projects and engage in these really sophisticated projects with various partners across the city and at the University of Toronto. And I'll share some of these projects with you. Also wanted to credit one of our lead mentors, Isaac Crosby, who is an Indigenous gardener, knowledge keeper at the Evergreen Brickworks, and with him, we've been doing a lot of our kind of hands-on learning of plant knowledge and stewardship. And then want to give a big shout out to our youth. They're really the designers behind what you're going to be seeing: Pearson Bell, Aidan Crosby, Maggie Devens-Kahn, Zach Devens-Kahn, Avery Hill, Ella Laforme, and Sarah Staniforth, all incredible individuals who have been, some of whom have been part of our program for 3 years in a row and have been just incredible to work with. We're so fortunate and grateful to have gotten to know them so well. So what are some of our, motivations? Learning from the land, thinking about deep observation and really being on the land, learning from plants, water systems, ecological corridors, all of the ravines, the geological histories, the kind of thinking about scale and time that have formed the rich landscapes in which we live. What forms the ravine lands that we're in? What is the relationship to the lake, to the lakes and the waterways? What grows here? What didn't grow here and is invaded the area? And how do we deal with these kind of issues of invasive species, of ecological protection, of thinking about pollinator species, and really looking at the kind of connecting cultural knowledge with ecological knowledge. We have a huge roster of mentors that are part of the circle, and that's a big part of our education. Elders and knowledge keepers, ecologists, artists, activists, designers, bee experts, drummers, language speakers. They all form a kind of network of teaching. And on the right here, you can see Elder Wabagoon, who's the lead or elder in residence for the program. And on the left, Isaac Crosby, who is leads the Indigenous Garden program at the Evergreen Brickworks. We learn a lot from stories. Mary says of genius, plants have so much to give us. Breeding sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer, Christy Belcourts, and the assemblage of knowledges that she assembled in this incredible book of Métis plant use, and Isaac Murdoch's incredible stories of Nanabuju and plant names and the lessons that we learned from plants, but also about ourselves. And to quote Robin Wall Kimmerer, to be native to a place, we must learn to speak the language of the place, right? So we think about how our landscapes have transformed over time. Some images from the summer about a canoe trip to the island and thinking about the nations that used to live here and the wild grass marshlands that used to be around the island, and thinking about the potential restoration of wild rice, looking at our ravine lands and looking at what are some of the ecological challenges that we're facing today, looking at cultivating and taking care of food systems, as Angela was alluding to before. How do we create urban gardens that produce food? And part of the program the youth were involved in with Isaac is gifting elders through council fire every week a basket of vegetables from this garden. And the youth created also gifts and letters and artwork that they would attach to those packages with to the elders, creating that kind of idea about gifting and reciprocity and thinking about not only taking, but also giving back. We had an incredible pleasure of having Wendy McCoon's genius. She's a scholar in Anishinaabe language, be part of our program, and thinking about how language is so connected with the kind of philosophical idea around interconnectedness. And that's manifest in how plants are named, how animals are named, how all systems are named, because they're all interconnected. And thinking about that, our relationship with plants, not just about viewing them and taking from them, taking as well, but knowing them enough to know what to ask for, and then having that kind of respect in taking care of them, and keeping the balance, right? Our promise to Creator about the balance. So we were thinking about, here's some images of the youth making seed bombs this summer, really thinking about how when we think about plants, we think about them in dynamics, right? We've got from seed to seedling to plant to maturity to this kind of cycle, seasonal, annual, there changes over time. We want to observe the fact that plants are not still, they're constantly evolving. They're in relationship with one another and with us, and they need us too. They need us to cultivate them. They need us to spread them. They need us to think about them and to talk to them, to say their name, to call them, and to eat them, right? We have that kind of relationship. So here's some wild rice dishes that the youth made over the summer after we watched Winona LaDuke talk about, the importance of heirloom species and biodiversity, and making sure that we cultivate that kind of biodiversity of plant and plant knowledge. And then, as I mentioned before, all of our relations, not only thinking about us, but thinking about pollinators and birds and bees. And you will see that our plants are really, the plant design are really thinking not only about our relationship to them, but what's there for the animals to also to support and sustain them throughout the seasons. And lastly, thinking, and this is James Vukolich, who was also an incredible Ojibwe language scholar and teacher, who shared with us an incredible lesson this summer, thinking about all of our relatives and thinking about our responsibility for 7 generations, and gratitude for the ancestors and the generations that came before us, and the responsibility that we carry forward. And on to the next 7 generations. And this was a tree planting that we just did this past weekend. This was at Downsview Park, one of our partners in the city. This is our 3rd year in a row that the youth are leading a community planting event. We planted 100 native trees and shrubs, leading communities, families, little children who came in and planted trees, and also thinking about, connecting them, like cultivating that kind of connection to plants, to the land, cultivating that love to take care of Mother Earth, and to go out there and be involved and do tree planting. And the youth show that kind of leadership. And what's really amazing is also that the youth's families come out, their parents, their loved ones, to support them. And so we look at our events as opportunities for community building, and that kind of building a community that comes together through these events. And lastly, an image here of Kayanase. Kayanase is a First Nation owned nursery at 6 Nations. from which we source a lot of our plants. So thinking about also giving back and what Indigenous businesses we support through our work. As I said before, we answered a calls to action, call to action number 1, which is Indigenous spaces at the University of Toronto. Call to action number 15, looking at I think that one is on curriculum, or perhaps the staff, I can't remember. 15 and 17 is either one is curriculum, thinking about Indigenous content and thinking about how the work that we're doing actually feeds into the landscape program of the Daniels faculty. And there's an interrelation between what we're teaching at the Daniels faculty and the experience that Stefan and Agata and others have had in participating with a program like Nikabita and Gigwag. And also another call, which is looking at the value of the knowledges of elders and knowledge keepers in our institution, and value that as much as we value so-called academic knowledge and having elders and knowledge keepers on staff. And that's been, again, one of our mission. And then, as I said, call number 26, which is really our kind of the heart and core of our mission, is to support the youth in mentoring them for post-secondary education. We also answer calls to, other calls to action on low carbon action from the University of Toronto. And thinking about increasing canopy cover, which is the City of Toronto ambition to increase the canopy cover. And the grant that actually supports, or one of the grants that supports this program, is from the City of Toronto Urban Forestry, the Planting and Stewardship grant, which actually allows us to do all this work, pay the youth salaries, also purchase the plants that are going to be going into the garden that we're going to be speaking about, and all the other plantings that we're doing. And so it's a real kind of idea that, or model that allows us to think about supporting youth and intergenerational connection with elders and knowledge keepers, thinking about curricular changes and Indigenous spaces on campus, thinking about bigger ambitions around climate change and biodiversity and ecological protection, and thinking about how we can do all this on, within our purview, within like just us, right? Like, it's so possible for all of us, for each one of us, to engage in things like that. All right, so now this is kind of gives you the background of how we've been thinking, like what motivates us all, the values of the program and the youth, and what their messages are. And I hope that represented some of the kind of the thinking that is the foundation for the planting. This is a street view of what the site looks like now. Actually, as of yesterday, Stan's group uprooted the grass and the daylilies. There's some sage that was there, and we will replant that again with Angela's group and everybody next spring. So we look forward to that. And so the way that this is transformed is that this is a rendering by Stefan, looking at the proposal for what we're going to be seeing over the next few years as the planting we're going to be doing this Saturday matures over the next few years. And the idea here is to create this really diverse and canopy. You have this kind of taller canopy, but still understory trees that are creating the architectural form of this, and then different shrubs and perennial plants that are going to be interspersed below. Here's another view looking south. and a kind of a zoomed in image of what the planting will look like over the summer. I'm going to share with you some details of what we're actually planting. So one of the trees that we're looking at is an understory tree that is commonly called the Saghorn Sumac in English, Bakwatanig in Ojibwe, looking at this kind of incredible architectural form that this plant has, that allows for this umbrella formation of the canopy above, and having these incredible conical fruits that are that grow in the summer. These incredible bright red fruits that are beautifully tart, and that birds can actually feed off of, not only in the summer, but also as we go into the winter, as food becomes scarce. What we love about this plant also is its fall showing. It's flame red, color, and that's going to be that kind of transformation. So a lot of what we wanted to see is this bringing people's attention to this transformation, this seasonal transformation over time, and connecting us to the seasons, connecting us to the way that all of our relations, Sky Nation, and changes over time, right? With all those plants, there are incredible medicinal and traditional uses for these, and there's some notes here on the right that look at some of the medicinal properties and uses. The Ojibwe preserve the seeds, the seed heads for wintertime food. They have all these different antihistamine and properties, for cold medicines and eye medicines and astringents and heart medicine and so on. A lot of different kinds of uses that we've been learning about. And one of our, this was a favorite of one of our youth, Ella LaForme, who also found out the name. She was really interested in the Kanyenkeha, the Mohawk language, naming for the plant, and did some research on that. And her drawings really illustrate that kind of transformation, the seasonal transformation from the green to red over the fall season, and that incredible fall fruit or summer fruit that's available. And then really engaging with that. So we made a sun tea out of the sumac. We added honey and all sorts of other fruit into the sun tea, and we had that as an iced over ice over the summer. It's incredible tart flavor. It's just amazing. And so that was one of our sort of the youth's favorite plant. Every time we go on walks in the ravines, there's always like, here's the sumac, here's our sumac. So that's one that we really love and happy to share as part of this garden design. The other is serviceberry, the Amalankir, Goji Guacomen in Ojibwe, and thinking again about that kind of transformation, a seasonal transformation, these incredible fragrant white flowers that are going to be there in the spring, that as you pass by, you actually notice the garden. It brings some brightness to your day. The autumn color of the red leaves, the orange red leaves that you're going to be seeing, the fruit and berries that are available there for the birds to pick over time. And those as well, they've been used for main food sources and jams and jellies. And when we're thinking about plants, the stems were also traditionally used in many uses. So if you read about traditional uses, many stems would be used as handles and walking sticks and tools in general. So really looking at plant usages not only as something that we consume, but also in a variety of different ways that they have been used. And this kind of brought to mind a story that Isaac Murdoch shared with us about the great fisher story, about how the great fisher, as he was doing his brave deed to save the planet from being completely frozen, was at the sort of the almost perished. He was so hungry, and remember the teaching of his grandparents that the bearberry exists during the winter months, and that you can actually find those berries that are there. And so really thinking about the kind of plants that we chose have the berries that are available for animals during the winter months to sustain them over the harsh winter. The next plant that we have is the red oyster dogwood, one of our favorites, Misquabeamish, in Ojibwe, and really looking at the kind of incredible red stems, those white berries that are available for animals in the winter time, the fragrant blossoms in the spring, and again this bright red turning of the leaves in the fall. And this has a lot of history. The stems are used quite a bit. Again, many different uses. There's some debates about that, but some say that the inner pith of the bark is used as part of the kinnikinnick mixture, which is also mixed with tobacco and smoked in pipes in ceremony, and lots of different medicinal properties. And one of the things that we experimented with this summer with the youth is basket weaving, and thinking about the incredible traditions of fiber arts and weaving structures with what Kino Ginnikwake, who's the medicine woman that Wendy McCoon's genius and Mary Sissop genius tell us about, is she calls it the bend and stay plant. That kind of idea that you can bend because it's so pliable, and you can actually create all these different structures, and then they harden over time. And that's been one of the teachings that we learned this summer. The spice bush, an incredible plant, also has its awesome, like neon yellow showing in the fall, beautiful red berries that mature over the fall and are available in the winter time, and these beautiful clusters of fragrant flowers in spring. Incredible also usages and histories of them, and as a flavoring in beverages, a replacement of allspice, and all the kind of medicinal uses by Cherokee and Chippewa tribes over time for blood medicines, for dermatological aids, and all sorts of other respiratory ailments and all sorts of things like that. So even to treating arthritis. So really thinking about all the potentials for elders and knowledge keepers to come on site and share these stories and these teachings with us when they see that present on our land. And then finally, looking at the Miscomin, the flowering raspberry, having these incredible violet flowers that come out in the summer, the fruit, the red fruit that gives way in the summer, and that beautiful fuchsia fall color that's there, and that's going to be a kind of more of a sort of a creeping shrubbery that's going to be there. Again, incredible medicinal properties for treating stomach pains, blood purifiers, washing of sores, and so on. So lots of different also I think important to remember that the plants have so many different parts to them, right? So roots are used, seeds are used, flowers are used, bark is used, the pith is used. So, and one has to really know when to harvest them, when to actually, how to process it. And that, I think, gives us the opportunity to remember the vast indigenous knowledges that are there, the vast knowledge systems that that are there for thousands of years, and that we should honor them and remember them and bring them to life through these plantings. So here we are, we have close to 100 plants that are going to be going in this Saturday. The youth are going to be there. So if you happen to be on site and you want to come visit us, we'll be there from 8:30 in the morning until 5 p.m. until we finish planting. Please feel free to stop by and say hello and meet the youth. We're really excited to also have this this vision that the youth have come up with come to life. And the idea is, and this was something that, two messages that they really wanted to impart and to share with you, is that they wanted Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples to know the vast knowledges of plants and their gifts beyond the 4 sacred medicines. And that was one of their really important message from them, is to know that there are thousands of plants out there that we should know about, that have long, vast histories of knowledges and usages and cultural usages. And to really think about this fall planting that is going to be sort of in flames, and perhaps thinking about today and having this vision really present there, to honor the Orange Shirt Day and the events that are happening around a day like today. So with much gratitude, I want to thank our mentors, partners, and funders. We have an incredible group of mentors, knowledge keepers, elders, professionals, academics that have been part of our program and directly or indirectly have influenced the design of this garden. Also, a big thanks to all of our partnering organizations, and it really takes a village, as they say, and the grant funders that have made this program possible. Thank you to everyone. Miigwech, niwawan.
So Liat, Ms. Rowland, and I have a comment. It's a beautiful presentation. I must confess that just by looking at it, it brings peace. The colors, the formations, and your words, it brings a lot of peace. I'm a retiree, so I just came from a walk behind my home. There's a beautiful path, and the majority of the plants that you showed are in that park. And in fact, we have a narrow corridor of only sumacs. And I love the sumac, and I always see the red, and I didn't know it was a consumable, so it's good to know that. But two things happen every time I walk. There's a stream, and I stop at the stream, and I wonder if in the trillions of objects up in space, this is the only place that we have water running and gurgling and talking. And then as we go down, I have a clump of oak, 10 beautiful oaks in one clump. And I always stand and I talk to the clump. And so all the things you talked about, I get it, I understand it, and I live it. So just one other, and it's good to see that you're getting the institutions involved, because everyone has to be involved. And in your parish, in architecture, if the architects can have a promise before they leave the walls of the university, and if the societies of architects can also have the same promise, that I promise as I design to save the green spaces around where I'm trying to design, And I promise that what is left, I'll upgrade them. And I promise that between the buildings, in the empty spaces, I'll add green. Because as you know, as we develop, we tend to create concrete jungles and concrete floors. And some of you may have been to Tokyo, and as you know, that's a concrete jungle. But what they've been doing more recently, they're creating Zen gardens between all of the buildings. So every time you finish work, you go outside and you walk around, you're walking around in a garden. So I think this is a great presentation. And if it's a start for many of the things we're doing, it's a great start. And thanks very much for doing it.
Thank you so much, Roland. Thanks for the kind words. And yes, we promise to share your message and to make all the architects that graduate from our school have that. I love that idea. I love that as a kind of you know, like you take an oath, right? An oath in medical care and healthcare, right? I mean, we should be taking the same oath to have a kind of that promise to the land, right? That is really important. And at the end, I think we see that, and I think the last couple of years have really shown that it so acutely is how much people need to connect to nature, right? How we really miss that, and how we're missing in our urban environment more of those spaces to connect to plants and to water streams and so on. It's really, really essential. So thank you for your words.
I just wanted to comment. As you know, the land is formed naturally. And if the architects can build into the formation and not gouge the land to put all the stuff, just fit it into the formation. And I think that's another promise, that we will not gouge the land unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Thank you so much for your comment, Roland, and thank you, Liat, for that amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Better blew expectations out of the water. So thank you so much for that. I do want to give an opportunity for Stefan and Agatha. I know you guys have been so involved in the process, but we haven't had a chance to hear you yet. So just want to open the floor. If you have anything to sort of jump in and add or anything to say, want to give you that opportunity.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. I mean, in typical fashion, Liat has kind of knocked it out of the park, and you kind of ran the whole gamut of a lot of the things that we were thinking about and learning over the past year, almost 2 years now. And also to respond to Roland's comment about just walking in your backyard and seeing sumac, a lot of these plants that we are presenting here are often considered roadside, or for a long time were considered roadside weeds and other plants that were often overlooked. I think it's important to bring those plants that have been overlooked for so long back into the urban context. And it's pretty amazing. I feel like Agatha and I are like pretty speechless and happy and excited that after so much work and preparation and coordination with so many different groups, that plants are actually going in the ground in like 48 hours. It's so great. So it's awesome to get everyone's support as well. And if anyone has any questions for us or logistical questions, anything, or anything, yeah.
Maybe I'll just add by saying that I mean, for us too, as non-Indigenous students and settlers here, you know, I immigrated here as a kid. It's critical for us to learn about the history and the presence of Indigenous peoples, especially in urban centers, because that's where so many communities are. And it has been so transformative, really, for us to approach or practice with like this knowledge that we're learning. So yeah, we just feel very honored and very privileged.
And if I just may add something, I think a huge thanks is owed to Stefan and Agatha as really leading this this design and leading the youth. I think there's such a intimacy and mentorship that you know, you have shared with the youth. I mean, you are really their sort of closest mentors, and they work with them day to day on these projects, and the impact that I've seen on the youth's lives and happiness and joy from the two of you is just remarkable. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Liat.
Thank you.
That's my standing ovation right there for you. Stefan. Wonderful. So just I know we're tad over time. Maybe we'll wrap up at 12. But if there are any other questions that anyone has, please feel free to jump in, ask the questions now while we've got our experts with us.
So Ryan, is Roland again. Sorry to jump in again, but as I did my walk this morning, it just came to my mind that wouldn't it be lovely if we had a global Indigenous Day, September 30th, across the entire globe. I'm not too sure it just started in Canada, but just the idea that every nook and cranny of the globe, as the Lord invented mankind, it started with Indigenous people. So every country has an Indigenous population. And wouldn't it be nice that if we can evolve this into an Indigenous Day for the entire globe and do the kinds of things that Liat and Angela and you are talking about?
And what I'd hope is that we expand it and it doesn't sort of sit relegated to a day. I think some of the work that we're going to do is really think about how this type of knowledge and practices can be, you know, more of our everyday type of work. And so I know we will continue to sort of expand. We'll continue to provide opportunities to learn, to share, and really to incorporate new and different ways of thinking into the already excellent sort of excellence that Dalalana produces. And we will, through that, only evolve and continue to grow with that excellence. So again, I want to thank Liat, Stefan, Agatha so much today for the presentation, but greater than that, thank you for the contribution and this garden that we're all really, really excited to see. I think people are excited to sort of come down. If there's any opportunities for them to lend support, if there's a way for them to reach out to you, let us know how we can continue to support the work. So again, setting our thanks everyone who's able to join us. We do have our in-person activities this afternoon. For anyone who's able to join, we'll be down at 155. We'll meet there, handing out orange shirts to anyone who's joining, and we'll be having a bit of a opening and remarks by Stanley Brown, and will be led through a campus walk by our Associate Dean of Academic Affairs, Dion Gisick. So looking forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you again for spending the time with us today. Thank you again, Stefan, Agatha, and Liat, and wishing you all the best of your rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.